Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. This is the last weekend in October, and it is certainly feeling like it as a strong cold front did move through the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, and it is on its way through the Ohio Valley and the Mid-South as we speak through this morning. And look at these temperatures in the wake of that front this morning. As you're waking up and heading out the door for your weekend, we're waking up to temperatures below zero up here with that deep snowpack that we were talking about yesterday up across Montana, the single digits extending down into Wyoming, the Dakotas here, but even a shock to the system across the Midwest, the Twin Cities region down into the mid 20s down there toward Lincoln, Nebraska, and even mid 30s for temperatures this morning in Kansas City. So definitely seeing that freezing line moving further to the south as we go through today, and that is going to continue to plunge further to the south and east as we go through this weekend. If you like detailed weather breakdowns across North America and the tropics, you find this nowhere else on YouTube. We definitely break down everything that you need to know right here on this channel. Also, be sure to press the thumbs up button as it helps to distribute these videos out to more and more people so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. Looking here at the alerts across the United States, we do have freeze warnings as expected with those sub-freezing temperatures settling in across the Midwest and the Central Plains here. Those freeze warnings extending from southwest Wisconsin through the Hawkeye state of Iowa, all the way back into Nebraska, northern Missouri, and north central Kansas here this morning. But then there's another shade of purple just to the west there, and that is a winter weather advisory that is in effect for the snowfall and even winter storm warnings back into central Colorado, where we are gearing up for what could be over a foot of snow into central Colorado going through this weekend. So timing it out for you folks here. Today, we do have some light to maybe some moderate snow showers across Nebraska, getting into southeastern South Dakota and northwestern Iowa here. But the heaviest snows do look to be across central portions of Colorado, especially as you go up in elevation there. And then we have some rainfall on the warm side of the system across the Little Rock region, Texarkana, and back into North Texas this morning into the afternoon. Then as we go into tonight, starting to see a little bit more organized activity with that cold air coming in. We see some mixed rain and snow, maybe even some sleet and freezing rain or freezing drizzle in a couple of spots there from just north of Amarillo up through the Oklahoma Panhandle and into western Kansas. This is not likely to be a big ordeal with an ice storm, but we are seeing some mixed precipitation there. And then the snow just to the north of there from the Denver region, especially up in elevation, and then getting across south central Nebraska as we go through tonight. And then as you go into Sunday, much of the same. A lot of the areas will be affected by that snowfall that we see here today into your Sunday, and then the warm side will reside across the south. So not a pleasant weekend for precipitation across the southern plains or the mid-south. Lots of gloomy weather. Lots of precipitation moving through today and through your Sunday, but this is definitely going to help with the drought conditions across the southern plains. So it is doing some good at least. And here's a snowstorm for you folks across northwestern portions of Iowa, back through the heart there of Nebraska, through central Nebraska, and then especially seeing some very heavy snowfall accumulations into central Colorado, especially as you go up in elevation from Denver there. That's where we could be easily seeing 1 to 2, even 3 feet of snow as we go through your Monday morning. So definitely seeing that, but a nice swath there of about 1 to 3 inches of snow, at least on grassy surfaces, that extends into central Nebraska, northwest Iowa, and far southern Minnesota through the weekend. And this could be causing some travel interruptions as well. So if you're traveling out west across the Central Plains or across the Rockies, particularly in Colorado, as you go up in elevation, this could cause some more moderate and major travel impacts there in Colorado. But some minor travel impacts are expected across central Nebraska, getting up into southeastern South Dakota and northwestern Iowa through your Sunday and Monday timeframe. So definitely watching out for that out across the west. Well, we're almost to Halloween, just a couple of days left, so let's jump into the Halloween forecast, and things are turning much colder. That cold front did move through, and that is going to pull down our below normal temperatures all the way into northern Mexico and the Gulf Coast, believe it or not, as we get in towards Halloween itself on Tuesday, October 31st. And looking at these temperature anomalies across the heartland of the country here, the Corn Belt in particular, we're seeing temperatures 10, 20, even 25 degrees below the norm for this time of year. And when you're looking at that here, Tuesday morning, you're waking up on Halloween, heading off to work or school, and yes, it's going to be cold out there. You're going to need the heavy jackets, possibly even the winter coats out there, because it's going to be cold. The upper Midwest, we're waking up into the teens and low 20s up here, and that freezing line is all the way south into the Waco region, San Antonio, and getting down in towards East Texas, toward the Tyler, Texas region, Shreveport, extending over to Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, and even getting just to the north of Atlanta, Georgia. That's where that freezing line will be for your holiday morning on Tuesday. And looking at the average first day of 32 degrees Fahrenheit or below, this is your first freeze. And normally you do start to see that in early to mid-November down here across portions of Texas and the Gulf Coast states through Dixie Alley. But we're about a week or two ahead of schedule with this cold blast. So definitely seeing that for your Tuesday morning. And temperatures will recover nicely as we go into the afternoon. We're seeing those mid-50s of a nice crisp fall afternoon across the southern plains up through the Tennessee Valley there. A lot of those mid 50s, pretty uniform across the southern United States. But those temperatures to the north are not going to recover too much. Remember, we have that snowpack up here and towards North Dakota, getting into Montana, and those temperatures will be held down by that snowpack into the 20s and low 30s up across those regions, and pretty chilly up there toward the Chicagoland area, Detroit, and even the Indianapolis region, St. Louis, into the low and mid 40s for your holiday afternoon. Looking at precipitation, going trick-or-treating on Tuesday evening out there, and it looks pretty dry across the United States and southern Canada, outside of a couple of snow showers near the Great Lakes and a couple rain showers down there, especially more numerous toward the Houston Metroplex, getting up toward Lake Charles and even the Shreveport region, Alexandria, Louisiana. Outside of that, we're not really seeing much precipitation. It's all in firm control with the high-pressure system across the United States going through the holiday. So if you have any trick-or-treating plans, looks to be about 95% of the country looks to be very good as we go through Tuesday evening, so not much to worry about there. Let's turn ahead to early November and look at your long range forecast, because as we go through late next week into the first few days there of November, we're talking Wednesday, November 1st through around Friday to Saturday, November 3rd and 4th there. It's going to turn colder and it's going to continue to stay cold through the first few days of November. But notice out west, we're above normal with our anomalies later next week, and that's only going to shift further to the east. So as we start to see more of a progressive weather pattern and a progressive jet stream moving across the United States, that's going to bring in more of that Pacific air from west to east here. What's out west now will actually move east as we go from a week from now toward next weekend, and we'll see another brief warm up back across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. But remember, above normal for early November standards. We're not talking 80, 90 degrees, but we're certainly talking about the 50s and 60s out here. So early into the first couple of days of November, this is Thursday, November 2nd in particular, for high temperatures out here. And you can see 50s pretty uniform across the Ohio Valley, back into the Midwest, 60s across the Plain States, maybe a couple 70-degree temperature readings as we go towards West Texas or even eastern New Mexico. And of course, warmer with those 80s down toward Phoenix region, around 81 on your Thursday. But moving ahead to next weekend, this is a week from today on Saturday, November 4th, and we're talking well above normal temperatures. I mean, this is early November, and we're seeing a high of around 60 there in Cincinnati, mid 50s there into Indianapolis, mid 50s in Chicago, and pushing 70 in St. Louis perhaps. That is actually anomalously warm for early November standards, so that would be your above normal temperatures. And looking at the precipitation forecast, moving through that Thursday, November 2nd through that Monday, November 6th time frame, the first few days of November will be a little quiet across the southern United States with those drier conditions. We'll see some wet conditions down towards Florida, especially down toward the Miami, Daytona Beach region, and then extending up through Myrtle Beach and perhaps the Wilmington region and towards the North North Carolina as we go through next weekend. And then active weather across the Pacific Northwest again from Montana back through Idaho, Washington State, back through Oregon, and portions of northern Nevada and northern California. We'll be watching out for some active weather out there as we go in towards next weekend. Here's your tropical weather update, folks. And remember, the hurricane season is not done yet. We're just entering in toward November in the next few days. And November usually starts to wrap up the hurricane season on a general year across portions of the Atlantic hurricane areas here. And you can see across the central Caribbean, we do have 30% chance of development over the next 7 days from the National Hurricane Center. This has remained the same as a 30% chance that we showed you yesterday. And you can see as we go into early next week, this is Monday, October 30th to the end of the month, very, loosely organized low pressure system down here across the central Caribbean, likely bringing some heavy rainfall to Cuba, places like the Dominican Republic, and even Puerto Rico as we go through the early portion of next week, but nothing overly organized. Then as we go into the middle of next week to start November on Wednesday, November 1st, really not seeing much in the way of development, very slow development with anything that does end up forming and popping off here across the Caribbean. So not going to see any quick development and certainly not seeing any hurricane potential into next week. And in fact, just to confirm that, with the EPS ensemble members, this is your European ensemble guidance for the middle and late portion of next week, and it's really not in agreement with where that low pressure center may form, if one even forms at all. Remember, it's not going to get that strong likely, at least during the middle and late portion of next week, so we're just going to keep an eye on it there. And then even the GEFS ensemble members, this is your American ensemble guidance for the middle and late portion of next week, and you can see even more disorganized from the Western Caribbean to the Central Caribbean to the Eastern Caribbean, where that low pressure center could develop if one develops at all. Again, this is very low confidence at this point. But if a low pressure system does develop, we'll keep an eye on these waters out here. Remember, the Caribbean is very warm for this time of year, as it has been all season long. We really haven't had a lot of tropical systems moving through the Caribbean at all this hurricane season. So very untapped water down here. So anything that gets going, we will definitely keep an eye on it for our friends down here in the Caribbean. Well, again, if you like detailed weather breakdowns on North America and the tropics, this is the place to be. It's absolutely free to subscribe, so make sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Make sure, if you do like today's video, to give it a thumbs up, a like on down below the video. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I do appreciate that very much, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend out there.